Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Come on in. Come on in. I hope you all are doing well. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Money in the Morning. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. It's so good to see everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Come on in and get comfortable. It is Saturday morning, and I want to say first, I want to applaud and congratulate all of you that got up on Saturday morning. Because you're serious about this wealth thing, you're serious about your economics, you're serious about your future. And the more serious you are, the more I respect you, because you know how the world is. You got a whole lot of non-serious people, a whole lot of talkers, do a whole lot of yapping, but don't really follow up with any action. We don't do that. We are action oriented. We take action. We go for it. We make things happen. We ain't scared. We are the best. We are the greatest. We are B1. B1 means black first. Black first means also that you are number one. B1, be number one. Don't be number two. That's what we do. That's how we are. Project 2070. In case you don't know what Project 2070 is, I was just explaining Project 2070 to a sister who's a financial expert named Deborah Evans, and she was asking me about that. And I said, Project 2070 is my belief that by the year 2070, a segment of the Black community, the B1 community, will be the most financially intelligent group of people on the planet. We will be seen as the economic superstars of the earth. We're going to own assets. Our grandchildren are going to be in positions of extreme financial power, and they're going to control nations. That's what they're going to do. And I know how to do that. Why? Well, because, when you got a PhD in finance, you kind of know all the secrets. So there ain't no secrets that the white boys are keeping that that I don't have access to. I understand how that works. I've sent students to Wall Street and all this other stuff. So my goal is every morning, every single morning, 7 days a week, to get in here with you and talk to you about economics so you can elevate your financial consciousness. That's why I call this economic elevation training, which is free to anybody that wants to participate. You don't have to pay money, you just have to pay attention. So, anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Let me know what city you're from. I like to every now and then see what city you guys are coming from. Let's see here. Okay, I see somebody. Calvin says for the culture. Absolutely, for the culture. And I think that's even a controversial term because sometimes when people talk about the culture, they talk about stuff, goofy stuff you see on BET, rappers wasting money, disrespecting women, killing each other, and all that. That's not the culture to me. That's not the culture at all. I don't follow goofy rappers. I don't think you should either because if you follow goofy rappers, then they're going to get you killed. They're going to ruin your families. They're not good at having strong families. They're not good at building wealth. They're not good at building institutions. They're not good at developing industry. We've had 50 something years of hip hop. We don't have a single black hospital out of that. We don't have a single black factory out of this. We don't have any automobile manufacturers came out of this. None of this. And just a bunch of flashy, highfalutin Negroes running around talking about how much money some white guy gave them. And that doesn't impress me. I don't care about that. You're just a high paid puppet and a high paid slave. So I hate to be mean like that. But it's Saturday morning. I guess I'm on one because this is what's coming through my spirit right now. And I have to be honest. A lot of it's a bunch of nonsense and a bunch of BS. So when I say for the culture, I'm talking about a very simple idea. The very simple idea. When I say for the culture is this. I want black people to be physically and mentally healthy. That means mental health on 10, physical health on 10, learning about all the foods that they're giving you that's giving you cancer, that's killing you, all the mental health issues, the trauma, the undiagnosed, untreated trauma. To me, the culture is strong relationships. That means brothers are helping brothers, sisters are helping sisters, black men and black women love each other, respect each other. We all value family. We train our children to manage family because family is connected deeply to wealth. If your mental health and your physical health and your family structure is off, your wealth will be off. Let me just tell you, this is one of my bones to pick when the BET executives tell us that this is your culture, the white people that own BET, when they tell you that this is your culture, I'm like, that can't be our culture because that culture is one where families are all broken, which means broken families lead to broke ass people. That's what typically happens. It's very, very difficult to build generational wealth when you ain't even planning for the next generation. How the hell are you going to build generational wealth when you haven't even thought about the next generation? Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Think about this. If you're not planning for the next generation, then take the words generational wealth out of your mouth because you have no next generation. Literally, you have no next generation. Generational wealth means I'm thinking about the next generation. So how can I be thinking about the next generation when I'm impregnating every chick that I see? When I got, when you talk about young girls being encouraged to have 5 or 6 baby daddies, when you got people getting divorced before they even walk down the aisle, How are you going to talk about generational wealth when you don't even have the next generation? There's no connection. Pay attention now. This is the culture. Hey, y'all, this is the culture. This is lit, yo. This is the culture. That's what they do on the BET Awards. This is the culture, y'all. I'm like, okay, so what is that? There's no you're talking about generational wealth. You're using it as a catchphrase because you heard me say it on the Breakfast Club, maybe, or something like that, but you don't even know what that means. You don't even know what generational wealth means if there's no connection between this generation and the last generation. There's no intergenerational transfer of knowledge. There's no intergenerational transfer of resources. There's no intergenerational transfer of relationships and connections with each other. So how the hell are you going to talk about generational wealth when you don't even have a connection between generations? Y'all understand? It's like you're trying to you're like anybody watch the horrible disaster called the men's 4x100 meter relay in the Olympics every year. Anybody follow that? Every year, in case you don't know, I'm a track and field fan. I used to be a track coach. Every year, we show up with the biggest, baddest, fastest sprinters in the world. Every year. This year, we had Noah Lyles, bad boy, Fred Curley. Oh my God, he's amazing. Christian Coleman, the fastest guys on the planet, lining up to if they were able to get on one accord, they would obliterate everybody. They will obliterate even the Jamaicans. The Jamaicans are tough, but they would beat the Jamaicans. They would definitely blow out the Canadians and the Spaniards and the British. I mean, come on, the British, they can't hang with us. Love you. I love you in Black London, but y'all can't run with us. We are the best in the world. But what happens? Answer me in the chat. Answer me in the chat. What happens every time they have the Olympics? Why do you think that it is that the US men's 4x100 meter relay team has not won a gold medal in that event in 20 years? What happens every single Olympics? Every time these dudes line up, what happens? They don't even get the damn baton around the damn track. Every single time it's almost like the Dallas Cowboys blowing it in the second round of the playoffs. Like, you just know it's going to happen. So every single time there's an Olympics, we show up with the fastest men on the planet and they lose because they cannot get the stick around the track. What does that mean? That means that no matter how fast your first leg ran, if you can't form a connection between the first and the second leg, if those two guys don't connect, this year was Christian Coleman and Kenny Kung Fu Kenny. They call him Kung Fu Kenny. I can't remember his last. Kenny Bednarik. And because these two guys could not connect, because there was no connection between the first generation and the second generation, tell me if you get my analogy here. It doesn't matter how fast you run. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Let me know if you get this analogy. I like analogies, and sometimes they come to me and I have to explain them as I'm understanding them. I didn't even plan to use this analogy, so I'm literally putting it together as we talk because this is what God's telling me to say. But think about this. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter how many flashy, highfalutin, famous, rich Negroes you have in Generation 1. If there's no connection between Generation 1 and Generation 2, then you're not going to win the race. You're going to come in last place. You will not be on the medal stand. The Canadians the Canadians got the gold medal, not because they're the fastest, but because they understand teamwork. Because they understand that nothing matters if you cannot connect the first leg to the second leg and the second leg to the third leg and the third leg to the fourth leg. So what I want you to understand is that when you look around and you see people standing on the medal stand with the gold medal around their neck, they're bragging about how much generational wealth they've actually built. You got to understand that it ain't because they're smarter than you. It's not because they worked harder than you. It's not because they didn't have more income than you. It's because they got the stick around the damn track. They connected Generation 1 to Generation 2 to Generation 3 to Generation 4. So as a result, 4 generations down the line, they've got this much money and you're starting over from scratch. You're starting over from ground zero. I have a friend named Nomalanga Mushali Moses who is from Botswana. Shout out to Letsile Tobogo, who beat Noah Lyles in the 200-meter dash. He's the next Usain Bolt. He's extraordinarily talented. He's faster than Usain Bolt was at his age. That's why I say that. And one thing that Noma said to me, she married an African American man. I don't know what happened. I don't think that marriage lasted. And because I don't think he had a father or something or whatever, but not that that makes too much of a difference all the time, but it can make a difference. Anyway, I remember her saying to me, kind of out of frustration, she said, I do not understand how African Americans think they can actually build wealth when they don't even keep their families together across generations. She said the reason my family has wealth, and me and my significant other went to visit Noma Langa years ago, and she had a very nice house and they were very wealthy. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing that. I'm talking about like drivers and gardeners and maids and butlers and cooks and all that stuff. And I said, "Well, how did you get this wealth?" And she said, "Well, my great grandfather had lots of cows, and my grandfather had more cows than my great grandfather." And then my grandfather passed the cows to my father, and he has more cows than my grandfather had. And now me and my brothers have more cows than all of them. Now, what does that mean? That means that they ran a relay race where great granddaddy grabbed the baton, ran as fast as he could, passed it, made sure the baton got passed to the grandfather, who then ran with the baton, who then passed the baton to their father, who then ran as fast as he could, who passed the baton to the kids. They got that stick around the track, and now they're sitting on the podium with the gold medal. So if you can't, so when you talk to me, don't you dare ever talk to me about culture if you're not talking about the right culture. They talk to you about culture and they make you think that your culture comes down to fried chicken and twerking and broken English and shooting each other and Molly Percocet and whatever the hell these rappers end up talking about. That's not your culture, people. I'm sorry. That's not the culture that you're supposed to have. I mean, if it is your culture, I'm not making fun of you. Fine. Okay, go try that culture out and see what happens. See how much trauma you end up passing down to your children because you haven't thought about a structured approach to this wealth building thing. That's not culture, people. That's corporate, that's corporate pollution. That's corporate propaganda. That's what that is. All right. So anyway, let me dive into that. Wasn't even what I was going to talk about today, but I just got into that. I don't know why. I think somebody, you know what it was? I got triggered. See, because I'm heavily. I took the ACEs test. My wife has this. She told me you got. It's called adverse childhood experiences, and I took this test, and it turns out I'm very high on the trauma scale. I did not even know it until I was like 50. And so what happens when you're traumatized, like me, is you have all these trauma triggers. So one of y'all made a comment in the chat. I think it was Calvin. Calvin always says stuff that just gets my brain going. I don't know what Calvin. I got to meet you one day, man, because you've done this to me about 5 or 6 times. But I love you. He's not a hater though. He's not doing it on purpose. He's just a smart man. And so he said for the culture. And I was like, yeah, for the culture. No, that ain't the culture. This is not the culture. Oh! So I get really triggered. I ain't gonna lie. When I hear people say for the culture, when I hear people, when I watch the BET Awards, and they're like, this is the culture. This is the, and then they'll show some pregnant lady with 85 tattoos twerking, and they'll be like, this is the culture. They'll show some black man smoking a blunt with a liquor bottle in his hand. This is the culture. Then they'll show another black man shooting another black man. It's like it's like that's not my culture. That's not even black culture. That's white culture in blackface. That's literally a minstrel show that you're feeding me. How in the hell is it that we can become so dumbed down that we will let people feed us a minstrel show and tell us that this is a culture? Nobody thinks a minstrel show is a culture. That's not culture. So anyway, let me jump in. By the way, some of you were here last night. We did a just a really exciting event with Cody Ransom on the truth behind Black Wall Street, just what really happened with Black Wall Street. If you want to see the recording, let's see. You can. I put it on my YouTube channel, drboycetv.com. You can check it out there. Also, if you make sure if you go to say drboyceelevate.com, you can not just sign up to come into this private Zoom, but you can also get on the email list, and I'll email it out today, where you guys can check out the recording. And he did a really great job, and it was really awesome. And what we actually agreed to do was we're gonna make a trip. We're gonna do a group trip to Tulsa. I want to make it rain on the city. I want to make it rain on Greenwood. I want us to make it rain on the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge, which is the name of their business. And I really think that it's important that I think there's an opportunity here for us to make sure that that story is told, and also to continue to push for justice to be served. In case you don't know, in that state, they're really kind of blowing it under the water, or blowing it, pushing it under the rug. Mother Fletcher and others. I think Mother Fletcher's 110 years old, and she was still going to court to try to get them to pay some type of reparations. And I don't think a woman should be required to live to be 110 10 years old and then be dragged into court to get justice for something that was clearly done. So the Black Wall Street thing is something I'm very interested in. And if you want to join us on that trip, you can join us in the B1 Travel Club for free. Just text the word travel to 87948. I'll let you guys know when we do that trip. So just text the word travel to the number 87948, and I'll let you guys know about the trip. I got the team setting it up right now. And then in January-ish, we're going to try to do Ghana. Okay, so that's the plan right now. Keep fingers crossed. So Tulsa, November, All Black National Convention, October 25th. That's going to be in Lombard, Illinois, right outside Chicago. So that's coming up too. And so we got plenty of things happening in the Black Business School if you want to connect to the community. And if you want to know what the community is all about, in case you're new, I like to keep it really simple. This is not about being a Democrat or Republican. I don't care if you're gay or straight. I don't care if you're male or female. I don't care if you're young or old. I don't care if you went to college or not. I don't care if you're rich or poor. None of those things matter as long as you're Black first. Black first, in my view, is very simple. It means that we want Black people to be mentally and physically healthy. We believe that Black people should have strong relationships with each other and strong family. Also, third, I want your wealth to just be on 10. Wealth is a science. I want you to be the ultimate scientist. One of the biggest ways that they control us is through our economics. They control you with money. Money is power. Economic warfare is a very real thing. Economic colonization exists. And when you're distracted, then the reason I'm doing financial consciousness training every single morning is because when you're not conscious of what they're doing to you, that's when they can do it best. An unconscious person is the perfect victim. Unconscious can mean distracted. Unconscious might mean maybe you don't have the confidence to believe that you can change things. Maybe unconscious might mean that you're just simply asleep. Unconscious means maybe you're focused on the wrong things. So a lot of times our lack of consciousness, just literally sitting there thinking like, okay, wait, we got 1.6 trillion in Black spending power every year. Where's that money going? Who are we giving the money to? We should be conscious of these things. We should be conscious of like, wait a minute, I've got a newborn baby. My newborn baby is going to be out in the world in 25 years, and they're going to need money. Somebody's going to kick him in the ass if he doesn't have enough resources. He's going to be a Black man ain't nothing. The only thing worse than being a Black man in America is to be a broke Black man in America. So I got to fix that. How do I fix that? Well, little things like basic stock market investing for that child when they're little. Don't just send them to football practice and basketball practice. He's not going to be no professional football player, or he's probably not going to the NBA, but he is going to go into this game of life. And the game of life is 10 times more serious than the NBA or the NFL ever will be. So when he goes into the game of life, just like you prepare him for a football game or a basketball game, you have to practice. You have to prepare. He needs his pads. He needs a game plan. How in the hell can you go into a game of football? How the hell do you think you're going to win a Super Bowl when you haven't even practiced? You don't have a game plan. You don't have any pads. You don't know the difference between the end zone and the bathroom. That's what I visualize when I see so many of our kids going out into the game of economic warfare, which then that white man's serious about that. He's real serious about his money, and he's real serious about that oppression thing. So how are you going to send your Black child into the game of economic warfare when they have no preparation? Seriously, how does that make any sense at all? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you follow what I'm saying? This is very logical to me. This is all very logical. Hey, and I probably sound crazy because I get frustrated about it, but maybe it's just because maybe there are things I know at 53 that I didn't think about when I was 33. But this is very logical to me. The biggest thing that you see all through the internet is lots of us re-traumatizing each other by basically telling us about how hard it is to be Black, right? All the horrible things we're going through. But I went to work and my boss was racist to me. Why do you have a boss? Well, you have a boss because you have to go to work. Why do you have to go to work? Well, because nobody built you any generational wealth. Why do you have any generational wealth? Oh, because you lost that link, that connection between generational wealth. So all the hard work that your mama did working for the same white man you work for, none of that got passed down to you because nobody thought about it, right? Whereas if there was an accumulative effect, maybe if all the hard work of generation one pours into the hard work of generation two, which pours into the hard work of generation three, which pours into the hard work of generation four doesn't have to go to work anymore. Do you understand? Do you follow what I'm saying? They get like and this does happen. My friend Nomalanga, she said, I don't have to work because my great grandfather had cows. He did the work. Right? Work is energy. Money is energy. So this energy that granddaddy put out, they conserve the energy and they pass that energy from one generation to the next. So then you have a type of momentum. Then the kids and the grandkids don't have to become slaves Because somebody made a plan. Somebody prepared to ensure that the energy gets passed from one generation to the next. So this is what we believe in, and so if you're new, this is what we do. I sound extreme, I know, because I'm very passionate about this, but there's nothing extreme about anything that I'm saying. There's nothing illogical. The only thing that sounds extreme about what I'm saying is the fact that you've gotten so accustomed to people presenting black people with stupid ideas. You've gotten so accustomed to just goofiness that when someone comes along and says, "Well, why don't we just save and invest our money? We'd probably have more money if we saved and invested it." And then somebody gets mad, like, "Wait, no, we're supposed to go buy Gucci belts and Mercedes Benzes and work for white people. Like, what's wrong with you?" You know, and this is what you deal with. This is what you see. So anyway, let me keep going. If you want to go to the convention, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. The hotel rooms are almost gone. So if you want a discounted hotel room at the West End, you might want to go ahead and book that now because they're almost done. The team let me know yesterday, just like normal. A lot of you that came last year are showing up again. Those who are new, I guarantee you it's going to change your life. This is something I can promise you. All right. So let me give you something today that was on my mind that I thought was really interesting. It has to do with the curse of what I call the curse of social media. And basically, I was thinking about this today in terms of why Americans are just, why we love debt so much. When in 2006, I did a research visit with the Center for European Economic Research. I had a colleague from Germany who invited me to come and work in their lab, and I did. And so I spent the summer in Mannheim, Germany, writing research papers and studying, all different areas of finance. It was kind of cool. You get to kind of do whatever you want. So I got had this little place in Germany, and I would walk to work every day, and I got to eat these Donners every day. I learned like a little German words and stuff, and it was kind of cool. Germans are interesting though. They don't smile very much. They just kind of look at you like they don't like you, but then you'll talk to them and you find out that they really do like you. They just don't. They're like, why should I smile? Smiling's a waste of time. But anyway, I enjoyed my time there. And anyway, so when I was there, one of my colleagues who was across the hall from me came over to my office and he said, "What's wrong with Americans?" He was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What are you talking about? Like, what's wrong with Germans? Like, I don't even know what that means." And he said, "Well, he said, I looked at Z data, and Z data says that in Germany, we make less money than you. We pay more in taxes than you do, but we save 5 times more than you do." And I didn't know that. And that was the beginning. This was way back in '06, '07, I think. '06 was when I taught in China. I think this might have been, or maybe it was the same summer. Or maybe that was '05. I think it was in Germany in '05, and then I taught in China in '06. And so that exposure to other cultures and how they kind of do things really, really had an impression on me. You'd be amazed. Like you gotta go see the world so you can see how the rest of the world lives, and then you'll realize how crazy we are in America. We kind of do some stuff in very strange ways. And so anyway, so I went down this rabbit hole of kind of looking at how Americans are really trained to spend. 70% of the economy is driven by consumer spending. I've mentioned that before. You may already know that. But let me give you some quick stats that'll kind of let you know just how much danger Americans are when it comes to spending and why you don't want to do what everybody else is doing. First of all, credit card debt's at a record high. It just in 2024 passed $1 trillion for the first time in history. Second of all, this what this signals is that a lot of people are leaning on credit cards to take care of average everyday expenses. Also, the average American household carries about $101,000 in debt, including mortgages, credit cards, student loans, and other liabilities. Delinquency is higher. Nearly 6% of credit card balances were delinquent in early 2024, which is the highest rate in over a decade, which means that more people are struggling to keep up with their debt payments. The total U.S. student loan debt has exceeded 1.7 trillion, with the average borrower owing around 37,000, placing a massive financial strain on young adults. Also, auto loan debt has reached a new high. Americans now owe more than 1.5 trillion in auto loans, with the average monthly car payment being $725, making vehicle ownership increasingly unaffordable. So the average car note is $725. Now, I've talked to you all about the $5 a day investing plan, which is about $150 a month. If you want to take a look at that, this is an easy pathway for anybody that wants to have wealth in less than a generation. You'll be better off than 80-90% of all people within 10 or 15 years. Very easy to do. Feel free to go to blackwealthmasterplan.com. That's blackwealthmasterplan.com. Or you can also text the word money to the number 87948, and I'll send you some stuff like how to make money without working. So text money to 87948, and you'll get some stuff that way too. But anyway, remember the $5 a day plan is $150 a month. And one thing I explained to you is that if a person just randomly picks stocks, like if they just randomly picked S&P 500 companies and just literally every week just invested about $35 a week or $150 a month, after about 10 years, they'd have roughly between $25,000 and $29,000. After 20 years, they'd have somewhere approaching $100,000 liquid. By 30 years, you or your child or whoever you're doing this for would have somewhere close to $250,000 or at least 200,000, 240,000 or ish, something like that. And now there's no guarantees, right? Because the market can change. But this is what the data says if you go back into history. If you go back 100 years, this plan has worked consistently for anybody who did it. There's nobody who did something like this consistently who did not end up with a significant amount of wealth. Now, remember, with the average car note being $725, you're not talking about the $5 a day plan. You're talking about 5 times that amount, right? 150 times 5 is $750 a month, right? So if you process this, I want you to think about this for a minute. Where most wealth comes from is what they call an accumulation process from an annuity. An annuity, all an annuity is the same payment over and over and over and over and over again. It's just like if I'm walking from here to California, I'm taking step, right? And eventually I accumulate enough steps that I've covered the whole 3,000 miles. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get that? Okay, so basically when you're talking about wealth, that's what typically how people build that wealth. Just like that idea of kind of getting the baton around the track across generations. Another idea would be like if you're running a marathon, you're just running one step after another, and every step is accumulating something. So eventually you look back and you say, wow, I ran 26 miles. So basically, here's the deal. When you're paying all those car notes and everything, you're giving that annuity to the car dealer. That's $725 a month you're giving to the car dealer. Now, imagine if you have a car note of $725 a month and you're paying your car note on time every single month, and the car dealer is taking that money and they're just tossing it into the S&P 500. Let's say they don't know anything about stocks. They don't know anything about investing. They didn't go to school for it. They just know that, okay, I'm going to take your money. This month, I'm going to take your 725 and go buy me some Tesla stock. This month, I'm going to take your 725 and go buy me some Microsoft. This month, I'm going to take the 725 and buy me a mutual fund. If they did that, then after 10 years, roughly based on history, they would have approximately just off of the money that you've given them because you made your car note payment on time every month, they would have, I want to say, what's the number? About $140,000 liquid that you gave them, and all you've got is a car that's now depreciated down to zero, right? Because what you got was an asset that drops in value the minute you drive it off the lot. Right? Cars are the absolute worst financial investment you can ever imagine. But I understand we all need a car on some level. Most of us do. Me and my wife have cars, but cars are not a good investment. So what you're getting, so your wealth is going down because you own something that's declining in value. Their wealth is going up because they own something that's going up in value. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they're taking that 725 a month and they're plopping it into the S&P 500. And so after 10 years, they're good. They're, 140, 130, $140,000. That's enough money where literally if a person had that kind of money, they could literally, if they stretched it out, they wouldn't have to go to work for anybody else if they invested it properly, right? So then after 20 years, you've been making your car note payment consistently on time. So after 20 years, you've given them roughly $500,000, right? So after 20 years, so think about this. This is what's interesting. I know lots of people who drive the flyest cars on earth, like the nicest, like rolling up in something nice all the time. Always got the Cadillac, always got the Mercedes, always have the whatever. And some of these people are just flat broke. They don't have any money in their investment account. They don't have any money in their savings account. They don't have any extra streams of income, right? They're dependent on their job. They're living paycheck to paycheck. Some of them in their 40s, maybe 50s, 60s, and are educated, right? Educated people. Like this is how deep the trick goes, how deep the brainwashing goes. Even those of us who are educated, still can end up in that situation, right? Because why? Well, because you went to school and you did what you were supposed to do. You got the good job, you're making the money, and you're spending the money, and nobody really talked to you extensively or really impressed upon you the importance of investing some of that money too, so you can have that annuity and build that wealth for yourself. So you think about this, right? So you've been making that car note payment consistently for 20 years. Somebody has $500,000 in their portfolio that is a massive amount of generational wealth because you gave it to them. You made a donation. You donated that money to that other person, but you didn't donate any to yourself. You didn't donate any to your kids. All you can give your kids is that old Cadillac you've been driving for the last 7 or 8 years that you've been making payments on. After 30 years, I mentioned earlier that that number for the $5 day plan approaches a quarter million. For a car note, if you're making that same car note payment over a 30-year period, you're talking about roughly, let me make sure I can do the math right, about $1.2 million. $1.2 million. So you, after 30 years of making your car note payments on time, you may have given someone else roughly $1 million, and then you don't have anything. And the reason you don't have anything is because you gave your money away. And this is a mindset thing. This is something that I think you might want to process. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get a car. I have cars. My wife and I, we have cars. We're gonna get another car. We got these teenagers in the house now. You know, teenagers think they grown, they think they got their own lives and stuff. So now we got a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old and who's going on 30. So we gonna have to get a couple more cars. So buying cars is not bad. And when we buy cars, my wife and I, we don't skimp. We don't buy raggedy cars. My wife likes to be comfortable. She's a little bit bougie. And so there's nothing wrong with buying the car. The thing about it is making sure that you also have some of that money allocated for that long-term wealth benefit that you need to have in place for yourselves and for your children. Do you understand? So it's not a matter of choosing one or the other. It's really a matter of making sure you do both. And what I will see is I see people that are really, really determined to get the nice car, or they're really, really determined to get the new iPhone. But when I say, hey, make sure you also invest, as well, that's like something they do in their spare time. It's like, oh, investing's optional, but driving something nice is not optional. That's what I want you to pay attention to, is that that's the culture. That's the culture talking. The culture is where you may or may not feel the need to put money into your 401k, but you got to get your hair done. You got to have your hair did, right? Like I will spend my last nickel to make sure my hair looks good. Why? Well, because you're trying to, impress other people. You don't want other people to see you with your hair messed up. And I get that. I mean, but I can't, if I ain't got no hair, so I understand, but I can empathize with what you're saying, right? It makes sense. But at the same time, you can't just focus on, see, I think what the culture does to us, and I'm going back to that like BET nonsense, is it makes us focus more on looking good than actually being good. Like, you ever notice, like, when people are talking about who they're attracted to physically, you'll see where people will be physically attracted to a person who is spiritually, psychologically, and even physically unhealthy. Like, literally, you could be looking at a really handsome AIDS patient. Like, you could literally be looking at a man who is like drop dead handsome, has swag, super whatever, and women are all over him. And then he says, "Yeah, I had sex with 5,000 women in the last year," and people don't even blink an eye. They don't even think about it. And it's kind of like, to me, like are you just looking at the surface, or are you looking deeper to understand what this is, what's going on? Right. And what I'm saying is that overall, I think that superficiality, that shallowness, is something that's encouraged. I think that we are encouraged to be incredibly shallow as opposed to really thinking deeply about things, right? I don't think that deep thinking is very popular. I think that sounds boring for some people, or makes you seem like a nerd, or makes you seem uppity. I've been accused of being uppity. There was one NBA player who started doing all these videos about me saying that I was uppity, and I was like, "Why? What makes me uppity? I don't even understand what you're talking about. Wait, because I think about stuff. Does that make me a snob now? Like, what's wrong with you, man?" So I would say to you that I think that generally, that same mindset that will make you drive a Cadillac until you're broke and not have any like money put aside for the future, it's the same thing that makes people choose even their partners based on what they look like, as opposed to what they're actually made of, as opposed to the substance and the content of their character, their physical and mental health, what kind of person they are, right? Or a drop dead gorgeous woman who, every man wants this woman, but a smart man sits back and says, well, what kind of woman are you? What kind of mother are you? What are you bringing into my life? And I think that this sort of thinking, that's a type of consciousness that I highly encourage. I really believe that this is what's going to help you succeed, because I think that as Black people, we're really inundated with a lot of encouragement to be as ignorant as possible. Like there are people who literally just get mad when you say, "Hey, let's take a step back. Let's think about this. Like this don't make no sense." Like like no, no, no. You're supposed to follow the crowd. Do what everybody else is doing. I don't want to do that. I don't want to follow the crowd because the crowd is losing. I don't want to follow the crowd because the crowd is broke. The crowd is struggling. The crowd is oppressed. The crowd is in a zoo cage. Why would I follow you into a zoo cage? No, I'm going to run in the other direction, and I'm going to be the oddball who's running south when everybody else, when the crowd is going north, because there's no indicator, unfortunately, what they call the culture. There's nothing that you really see in the so-called culture that gives you anything other than instant gratification. When they present the culture to you and they say, okay, if you're a woman, the culture is, city girl life, babies, mamas, just like whatever it is that they tell you the culture is, irresponsible choices, ignorance, etc. There's nothing there that says this is going to lead to a quality life. Absolutely nothing. And same thing is with the men. Same thing with the men. So I think that when you talk about culture, you really have to understand that economics is culture. In fact, in my last book, which is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, I talk extensively about what an economic culture looks like and explain why so many of our families don't have a culture that leads to wealth building. It's no different from how the U.S. 4x1 relay team never wins because they don't have a winning culture when it comes to the relay team. A winning culture is where they do what the Japanese sprinters do. They practice year round and they make sure that they're ready. They have a winning culture. The U.S. 4x1 team has the fastest men on the planet, but they do not have a winning culture. Whatever they're doing in their relay camp, however they're picking their coaches, whatever they're doing to prepare is fundamentally wrong, and it's causing them to lose every single time. So when you're losing every time, but you have the potential to win, because we do have the potential to win. We have 1.6 trillion in income. We should be winning. We have more wealth than most countries on the planet. Do you know that 97% of all countries don't have a GDP that matches the income level of the African American community? Did y'all know that? How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all knew that if you were to stack up all the countries on the planet and look at how much income they have and compare it to what African Americans have, we will blow them out of the water. We got more income than like Spain and Russia and Ecuador and Colombia and all these nations, all these nations. These think about this. We sit around and we say, well, we can't own a sports league. We don't have enough money. We can't have our own school system because we don't have enough money, right? But you've got all these countries that have 1/10 of the income that you have, that have their own school systems, they have their own professional sports leagues, they have their own governments, they have their own manufacturing facilities. They have all kinds. I mean, seriously, it's kind of like it's a mindset. Culture and mindset are connected. In fact, if I was to rank countries by GDP, right? Let me see here. Right, rank countries by GDP. Let me pull this up. All right, let's see GDP by country. This is all I love this. This always makes me laugh when every time somebody says black people ain't getting no money, black people ain't getting no money. So let's go through the exercise. Black people, our 1.6 trillion in spending power exceeds the gross domestic product of Australia, South Korea, Mexico, Spain, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia. Those people that wear the things on their heads and they live in the desert and they got all this money that you think you ain't got. Uh, we have more income than the GDP of the Netherlands, Turkey, Switzerland, Poland, Argentina, Sweden, Norway, Belgium, Ireland, Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Thailand, Nigeria, Egypt, Austria, Singapore, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Malaysia, South Africa, the Philippines, Denmark, Iran, Pakistan, Hong Kong, Colombia, Romania, Chile, the Czech Republic, Finland, Iraq, Portugal, New Zealand, Peru, Qatar, Kazakhstan, Greece, Algeria, Kuwait, Hungary, Ukraine. In fact, we have a GDP that is 10 times, we have an income that is 10 times greater than the GDP of Morocco. It is 10 times greater than the gross domestic product of Ethiopia and Slovakia. It is 15 times greater than the gross domestic product of the Dominican Republic, Kenya, Angola, Guatemala, Bulgaria, Luxembourg, Uzbekistan. I could keep going. Y'all want me to keep going? I mean, if you want me to keep going, I could, but it would take a really long time to get through this whole list because out of approximately, I want to say, what, 177 countries on this list, our income is only exceeded by the GDP of 11. So out of 177 countries on this list, Black American income exceeds the gross domestic product of 166 out of 177 countries on this list. So what I kind of need you to stop doing is walking around here acting like you broke. You're not broke, you're broken. That's it. You're not broke, you're broken. And I would argue that if you simply shifted the culture and went to a culture that bred simple ideas like economic organization, a true commitment to generational wealth, long-term planning, delayed gratification as opposed to instant gratification, proactive thinking as opposed to reactive thinking, that you would be amazed at what you could pull off. You'd be amazed at what you could do. You can really do anything. Like you really could do anything that you want to do. In fact, some of you are doing it. Some of you are doing all kinds of stuff. And what I really want to impress upon you is that shifting your mindset, healing your trauma, working on these issues that affect so many of us, that just will really go a long way, not just for you, but for the people that you care about. You know, I don't think we want to drop our kids in the same mess that we grew up in because some of this stuff just gets really messy and I lose patience with it. It's not fun for me. All right. So anyway, let me move on. And before we get done, I want to remind you that the Black Investors Championships are going to start on the 19th, which is in 2 days. That's where everybody gets $50,000 in play money. You can invest in the stock market simulator. We will keep the leaderboard. I'll announce the leaders each week. And after 6 weeks, whoever has the most money is the winner. One big requirement is that you have to own at least 10 different stocks and you can't put more than 10% of your wealth in one company because I want to measure investors, not just luck, not just, putting all your money on one stock. And so that's going to start on the 19th. If you want to join us, you can go to blackinvestorscup.com. That's blackinvestorscup.com. The winner gets the cup. It's this really big, it just got here in the mail. I'll mail it to you. And also you get lifetime access to the Black Business School. And then there's a second and a third prize. So I'll let you guys know more about that. I don't have it in front of me, but that starts in 2 days. Also, one other thing to mention too is if you want to take a look, Aisha Verzi, who's in this class, she does some stuff with insurance. If you don't have your insurance caught up and stuff like that, feel free to go to drboyceoffers.com and Aisha's down at the bottom. Her phone number's there. You can call her and talk to her directly. And then also, if you'd like to join my mastermind, I do have a mastermind, the Winner Circle. You can take a look at that at Dr. Boyce Offers and apply and see if it's a fit for you. And that's it. Okay, so let me reach down and grab a couple more stats I wanted to share with you in terms of why Americans love debt, why we overspend. There's a lot of science behind this. There's a lot of psychology behind this. I talked to my wife about this a lot. This is why we created the first ever Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School, because I said if you mix therapy with financial stuff and we start doing Black financial therapy, we can really drill into some of these factors that are causing our wealth to deteriorate. So the first thing is for one of the biggest things that can cause the rise in consumer debt is instant gratification in the brain's reward system. So the brain's reward system is activated by immediate gratification. Immediate gratification is heavily pushed in our society, which leads you to basically push for short-term pleasure over long-term financial stability. This behavior results in impulsive spending and increased use of debt and credit. The biggest examples I can think of are like, when you give an 18-year-old a credit card. When I got my credit card, did anybody get those credit cards when you were a freshman in college? I did, and I loved it because it was free money in my mind. I didn't even fathom paying the money back at the time. I just thought like, oh wow, I've got this thing where if I swipe it, I can have everything I want right now. That's really, really bad when you're young, but a lot of us still stay in that trap as we get older. Also, there's something called lifestyle inflation and social comparison. So research shows that as incomes rise, people tend to increase their spending to kind of basically match or surpass their peers. So this is what they call lifestyle inflation. It is driven by social comparison, right? So this is why social media is so dangerous. There's a big curse, in my view, when it comes to Instagram and people doing their Instagram flexing and really showing their seemingly perfect life. Because one of the things I noticed about Instagram that a lot of people don't think about is a lot of the people on Instagram that are the biggest influencers, some of them are just flat out criminals. Some of them literally are flat out criminals. Some of them are showing you expensive stuff like you're 25 and you're driving a Lamborghini. Sometimes it's because you're a drug dealer. And I think that is so unfortunate because you'll have a 25-year-old who's doing it the right way, who's like in graduate school or who's working hard every day, who will literally look at that and say, "Gosh, I'm 25. I don't have a Lamborghini. Girls don't like me. I'm a nobody." And that just sucks because that'll distract you from making long-term investments in your life that'll get you to where you need to go to. I don't know how I would have felt when I was 25 and broke and I could barely pay the rent if I saw other 25-year-olds driving $100,000 cars. But I can just tell you, there are people on the internet who literally are bona fide, like went to prison criminals. Not to say that second chances don't happen and that people don't reform, but some people haven't reformed. They just found a new place to scam people, right? So basically, I think that the social media should be done with a grain of salt. I think if you find yourself feeling jealous or anxious over what you're seeing online on social media, you might want to throttle that down or unfollow people that really get under your skin. If something really makes you mad, just hit the unfollow button. That's okay. Also, there's a FOMO, which is connected to consumer behavior. Studies show that the fear of missing out can cause a lot of financial anxiety. My wife did a whole workbook on financial anxiety. If you want to take a look at it, feel free to go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. That's where my books are as well. And basically, it can trigger a lot of anxiety and cause you to make purchases that you might not consider otherwise. And credit cards allow you to do that, which can get you into debt and have you in the middle of financial problems. There's also something called optimism bias, where people they underestimate the amount of risk that they are incurring when they take on this debt. And I remember, I'll never forget. There's this guy that I just respect him. I like him a lot. His name's 19 Keys, and I was on a panel with 19 Keys, and it was our first time meeting each other. And I heard he was debating another guy about debt, the use of debt, and the guy he was debating was a brother that was from Georgia, and he was more like conservative Southern black man, sturdy guy. I feel like people from the South are very sturdy in certain ways. Not everybody, but they are. They can be. And he basically didn't believe in taking on a lot of debt. He was more in the Dave Ramsey camp of feeling like debt is not so good and I don't want to owe nobody nothing. And I got it. I heard it. To me, I just saw it as a preference, not so much as right or wrong, just like, okay, that's your style. And I remember 19 Keys said that something like it seemed like he felt like you should take on debt and that you should leverage as much as possible and go acquire real estate and everything else. And I listened to these guys go back and forth for a minute. And this was, I think, before the pandemic and before interest rates started to really rise. And at that time, I can understand why he might have felt that way because at that time, debt was really cheap. Interest rates were extremely low. And that was the play. People would go borrow a bunch of money at super low interest rates, invest the money, and make money because they're making the difference between what they're paying in interest and what they're receiving in income. That worked. It works when it works. It works when it works. But what happens though is that periods like this, which tend to cause economic booms because everybody's investing, it's like, okay, I'm gonna borrow at a low rate and I'm gonna go make this money. Well, these booms eventually bust. And when they bust hard. And when they bust, it's messy. It's a slaughterhouse. It's pretty much what you saw like during the pandemic and when the economy started going left and inflation started getting out of control. So then the Fed came in and hiked interest rates, and a lot of people that were in those deals got killed. So my point was not to say that either one of them were right or wrong. It was to say that there's no one way to kind of look at that. The one of the risks of investing that people forget is that things can go bad. And if you haven't thought about that, if you haven't processed that, then you're probably biased in the other direction. The big problem for the Black community, though, unfortunately, is that we are a little too conservative. We're a little too negative. We're a little too pessimistic because we live in fear. Traumatized people live in fear. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. Traumatized people are always looking around every corner. They're scared of everything. They're scared to go to the grocery store. They're scared to take a trip. They're scared to leave their mama's house. They're scared to quit the job. Scared of everything. Well, a lot of that's because you've been traumatized because you are a former slave. And trauma, shout out to Cody Ransom, who talked about epigenetics and generational transfer of trauma through your DNA. I think that there's something to that because we just sometimes just are scared all the time. And here's the thing about wealth. Scared money does not make money. You are not going to get wealthy if you are always afraid. If you're always scared, you're not only are you not going to get wealthy, but almost every blessing that you ever are supposed to get is going to pass right by you because you're scared to go outside and get it. Scared people do not do well in relationships because they're too scared to even go out on a date. Or if they go on a date and one thing goes wrong, they run. Because they're too scared of something bad happening. And so the reason therapy is so valuable for anybody that wants to build wealth is because therapy helps you process the bad things that happen to you so you don't use that as an excuse for you to go back in a hole and be scared of the world for the rest of your life. See, what a good therapist can help you do, among other things, my wife is one, shout out to the therapist, is they can help you say, gosh, I made that investment, I took a chance, and I got killed. I lost $50,000, but I'm going to try again because I believe that if I keep going, good things are eventually going to happen, right? And you can kind of work through that without it becoming trauma. Like one thing my wife taught me, you should shout out, you should really marry a smart Black woman who could teach you things. There's a benefit to that. So one thing I remember her explaining to me is that not every bad thing that happens to you has to turn into trauma. What makes it traumatic is when it happens and you don't process it in the right way or you don't process it at all. Like when you're little and something happens and it hurts your feelings. And because I'm thinking about my own life and little things that traumatized me when I was a kid. And the hardest part was that I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. And I didn't have anybody to help me put it into proper context. So maybe the way to kind of look at the trauma is to say, okay, this is what happened. It shouldn't have happened to me. Maybe this is a different way to approach that situation. Instead, you walk away with like these illogical conclusions, like this is why I'll never eat Fruit Loops again. Right, because Fruit Loops, I had Fruit Loops on the day my father died, and Fruit Loops are the reason that he's not here anymore. Just whatever. It'll be something goofy that a kid will come up with, as opposed to something that would be the product of a more mature response. So here's the thing. If you invest in life, not just in money, I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about the things that are more important than money, like just taking chances, like, forming relationships with other people and things like that. When you make investments, bad things are definitely going to happen to you. When you put yourself out there, sometimes you're going to have a bad day. And what I think, the reason I believe every person who wants to improve themselves should consider therapeutic support is that if you learn how to process it properly, then that's what helps keep you going. Bad things happen to me all the time. I make investments, they go bad. I get traumatized sometimes, or I have friendships that go left and bad, and it makes me feel really bad. Or maybe I do my best at something and it just doesn't work out. And it's that conversation I have with myself, the conversation I have with my wife, the conversation I have with the therapist that helps me kind of figure out like how to keep moving forward. That's what I just noticed that because the thing is that there's no state of the world where you're always winning. Most people who are winners, I think I might be a winner. I don't know. I think I'm trying to be. But the thing about people that are winners is that I don't think winners feel like winners all the time. They just know how to keep moving when they're losing. Do you understand? I hope that's helpful to somebody. I'm just thinking about this out loud. But that's what it really is. So if you want to be a winner, don't even fantasize about this false idea that you're going to be winning all the time. You're not. You might even end up losing a lot, losing more than you win. But what happens is that you stack up all these little wins. You lose, win, lose, win, lose, win. And every time you get a win, that's another medal on your on your neck, another trophy on your shelf. And all people do is they count your trophies. They don't really look at all the times you lost or all the times you tried or all the times you learned, because that learning process is the growth sequence that is required for you to get to the level where you are worthy of being a winner. You're not going to be worthy the first time you try. So just keep trying and find a way, just find a way to get through that without wanting to go jump off a building or give up forever. Because giving up is where you just kind of kill all possibility, and that's not fun. That's You can't ever build wealth by not trying or not investing. You always have to invest. Okay. So let's keep going. Last thing here that they mentioned in terms of why people pick up so much debt is emotional spending and financial stress. A lot of research shows that spending can be a coping mechanism for stress or unhappiness, which can lead to a lot of debt. During periods of economic uncertainty, individuals may engage in retail therapy using credit to alleviate negative emotions, thereby exacerbating their financial problems. So, emotional spending is something that's always been there. Financial stress is something that's very real. I would argue that if your goal is to minimize your financial stress and the financial stress of your children and grandchildren and people you care about, investing can kind of help with that, because then you have that buffer, which allows you to engage in what in economics we call that smoothing. Smoothing is where you're in a situation where even if bad things happen, you're still going to be okay, because when the times are good, you're preparing for when the times are going to be bad, and so you're not kind of going from boom to bust, right? Those who live paycheck to paycheck, that's what happens. Either things are good or they're just absolutely terrible. And so you invest and have those multiple streams of income so you can have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, and a plan E. You don't just want to rely on plan A because plan A may not go the way you want it to. All right. So anyway, I'm done for today. We're gonna finish up now. If you want to get notified when we meet for Money in the Morning tomorrow, we meet every day, 7 days a week. Text the word morning, MORNING, to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. Second of all, if you want to join the B1 Travel Club and go with us when we go to Black Wall Street and go to Ghana and all that stuff, feel free to text the word travel to 87948. So everything, that number 87948, is kind of everywhere. Depends on what you want to do, because the Black Business School, we have a lot of stuff for you, and we're actually building our team. We're growing the team. So I'm super excited about stuff we have going on in the future. And then last but not least, I do have a podcast on Spotify. I have a couple. One is called the Dr. Boyce Breakdown, and the other one is called Dr. Boyce Daily, where I kind of do stock market updates and stuff like that. So feel free to look up my name, Boyce Watkins, on Spotify if you want to check it out there. All right, guys. So have a great day. God bless you. And I need y'all, right? Because I'm a weirdo. I know I'm a weirdo, and I know that most people in the world are not going to understand me, but I don't care if they understand me or not, because I know you guys get where I'm coming from. I'm just looking for a few good men and a few good women. I don't need everybody, right? My goal is not to build bridges with ignorance. I'm not trying to fit into nonsense. I'm not trying to be part of a losing culture. I'm just looking for a few people that get it. And so I know that sometimes that might mean you're in the minority, but that's okay. I'm willing to go on the hill and die by myself, if that's what I got to do, as long as we're doing something meaningful before we die, because time is short. Time is short. Time is short. We must leave our mark in this generation. We must not just study Black history. We get to make Black history. And I believe that that's what we're doing right now. So God bless you guys. Have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow morning, and I'll take care.